again, what happens is what they'd really like to do, as I said, is, anybody like the sustainability? I got to work on the largest solar array in the country. It's in Martin County, Florida. It powers the whole county. Or let's be socially responsible, right? Let's do the social right things. I get to work with a group in Madison called Combat Blindness. They actually have come up with an innovation that gives people their sight back for $50. I'm not exaggerating. Cataracts is the number one cause of blindness around the planet, and Combat Blindness has been able to reduce the cost of being able to do a surgery to $50 using iPhones and a lot of high-tech technology. Fantastic. But I believe you can do that too. Now, I work here at the University of Wisconsin-Whitewater, the largest business school in the state, and people don't realize that. And as I said, we're ranked 21st in MBAs and 48th in BBAs, and I teach a lot of marketing, a lot of innovation. I'm on the Chancellor's Innovation team, and I believe in community-based learning, so that's why I'm doing this today. But we have such a wonderful program at Will. We need to be innovators. We need to be innovators with the disability community. Both businesses, we need to help you hire more people with disability, and we need to help students who have disabilities get hired. And that's our mission. That's what we're here. But we can't do it the same way we used to do it. We really have to be innovative and try creative ways to make things happen. Now, I happen to also be part of a group called the Innovatrium. It's the Juilliard School of Innovation. So what I'm going to teach you here today are some of the tricks and trades on how to be a really great innovator. Learning by working, and the Julian's, what we do in the Innovatrium is we work on real projects. In other words, we come in, just like today, I work on Will, and I work on other projects around the planet that are real, and I actually teach people how to do it, but it's a learning experience because I'm a professor. I believe in see one, do one, teach one. See one, you have to have what's the best practice. That's what we're going to do today. Do one, you really learn it when you do it. I don't care if you played sports or an instrument, how good were you the first day that you tried? I really sucked. I tried to wrestle, and I was wrestling in junior high, lost 50 in a row. And I ended up being at the end of the conference champ my senior year. But again, it's like you only learn it through doing it. I don't care if it's playing an instrument. I don't care whatever you learn. You have to see it done right. You have to have a good coach. You have to do it. And then I know you've arrived when you start to teach it. And again, it gives you a line of sight on projects. My center is located at the University of Michigan, but I also have a satellite here at the University of Wisconsin-Whitewater. So let's talk about learning to be an innovator. Now, I want you to think of yourself as a superhero, because you are. You're a superhero. I want you to lead innovation like a superhero. And what that means is I want you to unlock your personal and professional growth. And this is an education for you, because nobody gets it right the first time. When I told you I did 150 successful new products, I tried 600. I failed a lot. Now, thank goodness I had great bosses and good companies that allowed me to do that. So to me, when I say lead like a superhero, I'm not kidding. Are you the Incredible Hulk, super strong? Are you Iron Man? Are you Wolverine? Are you Spider-Man? Are you the assassin? As I said, are you from Wakanda? What is your special power? And remember, they're not great at everything. Nobody is, but they have a special power. And those of us, no matter where you come from or what's your background, you're great at some things, but you're not great at everything. And this is really true when I'm talking about people with disabilities. And the reason that's important to me is my grandfather came over here from Hungary, and at age 9, he was put in the mines. Yes, back then they used children labor. And there was an explosion. He lost 75% of his hearing. But he was a phenomenal mechanic. And what he ended up being, he became one of the best tool and die makers in the whole United States. He ended up working on World War II to help win the war. He was one of the tool and die makers for the atomic bomb. Now, he didn't like to talk about that because a lot of people died from the atomic bomb. But he was a superpower. He was a skilled craftsman beyond what you can imagine. That's what I want to do about you. I want you to think of yourself as having a superpower. Now, we are in the time of innovators. We have the coronavirus, which is changing everything, right? It's not ever going back to the way it was. Whatever you have, a major catastrophe, it never comes back. Think of it this way. When I deal with Haworth Furniture, the third largest furniture company in the world, they tell me from their surveys that 25% of the workforce is not coming back to the office. It's not coming back to the office. So that's an opportunity for innovation, especially those who are restricted in movement and have some disabilities, because now you can work from home. 25% of those jobs are shifting, which means opportunity for us innovators. They're massive opportunities, right? Because companies were not willing to invest in the infrastructure to have you work at home. But because what happened, they've made the investment. I always call it the 20/80 rule. When do people change? When do companies change? When do your groups change? Does anybody ever change when things are going great? The answer is no. When everything's going great, everything stays the same. They want to be normal. If profits are good, they stay the same. If volume's good, they stay the same. If education is running along fine, it stays the same. When do you change? I call it the 20/80 rules. It's easier to change 20% of an organization, 80% than it is to change 80% of the organization, 20%. It's when you're in a crisis, like COVID. Things aren't working. You have to change. It's when life, excuse my French, sucks. It's when you go through a heart attack, you go bankrupt, somebody close to you dies. That's when you change. Or when you're outstanding, when things are going really, really well, when you have excess capital. It's always about when risk and reward are reversed. Let me repeat this. Innovators know they look for crises or outstanding performances, right? And where risk and reward is different, because if life sucks, you got nothing to lose, so you're going to try stuff. Just think about the vaccine. It would normally take us 3 years, but suddenly everyone's working together, and they're trying things that they would never try to get this through. And I hope they're successful, right? I really do, and I'm counting on it because the innovators have stepped up. So what have you seen? And I always say, as an innovator, always watch the weather. Watch the weather. What's changing? What changed on innovation, right, when you're in education? Suddenly, we went to remote learning. I have over 300 students here at the University of Wisconsin-Whitewater, and as much as I love them, and I love to have them in class, they're not in class anymore. So how do I get my same, information to them the same way, get them motivated by virtually? So I'm having to watch the weather. What's the best thing? Wouldn't you like to invest it in Zoom before this happened, or WebEx, or any of those other teaching platforms? Things are changing. There's always new scientific discoveries. There's new technology. Just think about what phone you had 10 years ago, what phone you had 5 years ago, and what phone you have today, right? And they're different. Environmental change. We all want to be more sustainable. There's social norms that are changing radically. What's acceptable, what's not acceptable. Black Lives Matter. Things like this. Social norms are changing. Politics and economics, as I said, changing business models. I'm going to talk later about, there's a whole bunch of different business models out there that us innovators can take advantage of, especially if we're trying to support will, right? And there's market dynamics, competitors, disease outbreaks like COVID. This slide was done well before COVID, right? And it says these have massive impact on innovators. Always watch the weather. Innovators have a chance when something is changing. And we are now in the time of innovators. So think about this, and when you're talking about will, and how do we, with 25% of the workforce working at home, what basic trends that are changing that we can actually work with? We have blockchains, we have artificial intelligence, we have augmented reality. I'm working with another company on augmented reality right now. We have micro robotics like nanites that I just talked about. 3D printing, right? Anything can be printed now. I went to an auto show the other day and they printed a whole car that works on a 3D printer. Roboting of it. So how can we approach that in our world, of disabilities? How can we use some of these innovation to really make a augmented reality both for the employer and for the employee And if it's just for you, your own personal business, what of these trends can you take advantage of? So to me, if you think about innovation through the decades, it was all about deep domain experts, right? Research universities, corporate development centers. I've worked with a lot of these. I'm an old guy, I've been in some of these, right? But now what is it? Since 2000, it's entrepreneurials. It's collaborative open innovation networks. It's people like InnoCentive. They have, 4 million seekers and 5 million solvers. So it's not about what's in your organization. It's who knows something all around the planet. You could be working here in Whitewater with somebody in China, with somebody in Dubai, and somebody else in Germany. I do this all the time. I teach innovation at the Innovatorium, and our teams are not in one place. They're all around the planet. Incubators and venture capital, all are the rage now. So if you want to be innovative, it's called, you're not limited. I wish I was starting my career right now, because you can link and collaborate with anyone all over the planet. But here's the big problem that everyone has. There's just not enough time. I simply don't have enough time. So what are you going to have to do? Well, to be an innovator, the very first thing is, what are you going to stop doing? Not what are you going to start doing, but what are you going to stop? You have to make room for the unknown in innovation. As I said, it doesn't work. It's not as efficient. It's not turnkey. So you've got to make room for innovation. So I really ask you, if you're watching this, take a second here and think about, what are you going to stop doing? Because you got to make room, because innovation is high learning. It's really hard, right? So you've got to make room for the unknown. You really, really do. So that's what you're trying to do here. So let's talk about a creative mindset, an innovator's mindset. For innovators, really what we do is, it's really a code name. When I talk innovation, and I go to talk to CEOs, as I said, I work with 50 of the Fortune 500, and I say innovation, what they mean is growth. They want a growth mindset. So how do we have a growth mindset at Will, a growth mindset at UW-Whitewater, a growth mindset in your business? How do we get a growth mindset, right? It's really important. And I love this slide because it really captures when we're talking about innovation. If you seek growth, innovation isn't only your best friend, it's your only friend. If we do the same things the same way we've always done them, and then we expect growth results, we're never going to be successful. We're never going to be successful. We have to think differently, act differently to get different results. That doesn't mean we have more money. That doesn't mean we have a lot more specialties, but we have to look at innovation as our growth playbook. Now, when I talk about innovation, I'm talking about organic growth. I better be really clear, because there's other ways to grow companies, like I can go mergers and acquisitions, and I'm not talking about this. I'm saying, how do you grow your business? How do you grow your organization to be more successful, right? And I've done this for a lot of years, about 40 years now. Now, I love this example. Innovation is about positive deviance, not negative deviance, positive deviance. Most deviance is negative. When you say the word deviance, most people say, that's a negative thing. No, what you're looking for, things that work that shouldn't work, that work better than you thought they would work, right? I love this example. This is that we have 4, red delicious apple and 1 golden delicious apple. And when you look at that, you say, how did they, do you know the story of golden delicious apples? There was a gentleman, he owned an orchard, and he goes out one day, and one limb of his red delicious apple tree has yellow delicious apples on them. Now, they're not just yellow, they're a different texture, and they have a different flavor profile. And all of a sudden, he picks the apples, he doesn't know what else to do them, so he goes to his roadside stand, because there's not enough to be commercial yet. There's only 1 limb. He puts them on the roadside stand, and they sell like crazy. And everybody raves about the yellow delicious apples. So then what he does is he goes and takes those seeds out, as many as he can that's left, and he plants them. And they grow up. And if you know anything about biology, it's a recessive gene. So what grows? red, delicious apples again. Well, most people, that would be the end of the story. But if you know about anything about orchards, they often do things called bud grafting, because what they do is they take basically a plant that comes from, let's say, a red delicious apple tree, and they bud graft it on a thorn apple tree, which grows in really bad, soil like clay and gravel, and it can really do a really good job. So what does he do? He takes and bud grafts all the buds from that limb onto other trees. And to this day, did you know that's a positive deviance? Every yellow delicious apple that you've ever had came from that one limb, because it was bud grafted on all the over 5 million of them, in the United States alone. Wow, that's a positive deviance. So if you're an innovator, I want you to think as a positive deviance. Now, how much data is on the future? Realistically, how much data is on the future? We in business school, we teach you to study, what's the trends, what's going backwards, but how much data is on the future? Is dollar going to go up or down tomorrow? What's going to happen, in the Supreme Court? What's going to happen, dealing with China? What's going to happen dealing in the Middle East? Nobody knows. While we always look backwards, and we must live our lives forwards. So to me, it's always about looking forward, because if you're the best today, the innovator today, you're not going to be the best tomorrow. And innovators want to be the best tomorrow. But innovation is like milk. It goes sour. I always say speed is what you need. Let me repeat that. Speed is what you need. Everyone tries to get their innovation just right. No, you got to have what we call minimal viable product. Minimal viable product, MVP. And we got to move our feet, because whatever tech we had this year isn't going to be the tech we have next year. Every Christmas time, I look for new tech. Why? Because my old tech is behind the times, right? The phones, just think about how much your phones have changed the last 5 years. So innovation happens very, 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 very quickly. Can you imagine, as I said, being a phone producer and not basically going to Windows applications? Those people, they had $6 billion businesses that went bankrupt in less than 6 months because they didn't innovate, right? BlackBerries didn't innovate, and they went from buttons to Windows. Oh my gosh, and a $6 billion industry evaporated in 6 months. So understand, speed is what you need. Now here's something for us who go to business school or go to nonprofit, anything that you're doing at the college, is the number one thing that senior leaders look for in innovators or any executive is creativity. Why? Why do they look for creativity? How many classes have you had on creativity? If you're going to be an innovator, you have to be creative. Now, we can teach you how to be more creative, right? But if you think about it, creativity, what they're going to do is, if I'm in a business or your business, is anybody going to give you a whole bunch of extra money that you didn't have last year? Are they going to let you hire more employees or really expensive employees that are super great at a specialty in some area? And the answer is no, they're not. They're not. It's not going to happen. So the only way is you've got to look at what you presently have and how are you going to do it differently. So what kind of innovator are you? Now, I want you to think about this. The first thing we're going to talk about here is what kind of innovator are you? Because how you innovate is what you innovate. And we'll go through this, and we're going to have a little fun. We're going to play a card game. So I want you to play this card game. What I'm going to let you do, I'm going to show you 3 slides. I'm going to go really slow, and I want you to pick which slide best describes you. I want you to write the phrase down, because normally I do this in a card game when I'm in the room, and I can't do that today, and I apologize. I want you just to look at the card, write what the phrase is, and the color of the card. There'll be like a little border. And then we're going to do the next slide, and then the next slide. So let's go through this really slowly. Sorry, my lights keep turning off here. It just seems to time out on me a lot faster than normal, so I apologize. It's one of the things you have to deal with COVID. So again, which card best describes you? Number 1, red, improving processes. Green, anticipating trends and market direction. Third, delivering results, which is blue, or nurturing collaborative relationships. Improving processes, anticipating trends, delivering quickly, right? Nurturing collaborative relationships. Take a moment and please write down which card best describes you. Hopefully, you've got one of them thought of and you've picked it out. As I said, I don't want to rush you. Just pick one. Now let's look at this one. Now, which one best describes you? What you really are, what you really do. Do you drive through barriers when people put lots of barriers in front of you? Are you the person who just really makes it go through and makes it happen? Or do you meeting quality specifications? There's a right way and a wrong way. Oh my goodness, if I fix my car wrong, with the spark plug in the wrong gap, it's a problem. Do you meet quality specifications? How about, do you empower others, right? Do you empower others? Do you help, are you a really good delegator? Do you help train somebody? Do you basically teach like I do? What do you empower others? Or do you encourage breakthrough in innovation? Now remember, you can only pick one on each one of these slides, just one, right? Let's do this again. Driving through barriers, you're gonna make it happen no matter what. You meet quality specification. There's a right way and a wrong way to do it, right? We want, things to go well. You empower others, you teach, right? As I said, you do all those things. You help people, you delegate authority, you do a lot of things that way. You're encouraged breakthrough. Now remember, when you write these down, write the term and the color that you wrote down. So take some time. And here's our third slide. And I want you to write it down one more time. One more time. Number one, articulating future possibilities of the organization. Emphasizing the education and team development. Optimizing process. Focusing on performance and goals. Which describes you best? Which describes you? How you innovate is what you innovate. Now, because there isn't one way to do innovation, there's lots of ways to do innovation. Now, what I want you to do, hopefully, you've written down 3 cards and 3 descriptions that best describe you. Now that you've written them down, I want you to take a second and circle the one that best describes you. Now, I know they all describe you and you've done a really good job, but I want you to circle the one that best describes you. Now, remember, as we go through this is just an exercise. We all have lots of assessments. We can take you through a lot of training, but this is just a simple session today. So don't worry too much about this, but pick one. But I want you to keep that in front of you. And as I said, this is the one that you pick that best describes you. So let's keep going. As I said, how you innovate is what you innovate. Now I want you to look, not only do I want the term that you wrote down, but I want to know the color that you wrote down. Because we're basically at the University of Michigan, there's 25 years of research working with over 4,000 companies and over 100,000 executives that helps understand how innovation really works and how to make you an innovator. Because we have to understand you and what your strength and your superpower is. long before we have to even invent anything. Because if I understand your superpower, what you're really great at, you're going to be a much better innovator. So this is what we're going to do today. Number one is the artist. It's what you normally think about innovation. It's creative, right? It's never been done before. It's a breakthrough. It's a miracle drug. It's a craft beer. Henry Schwartz, who does Mob Craft Beer, was here at Whitewater and took my entrepreneurial marketing, right? And he goes down and he creates a new and unique way to create beer, right? What he does is have you put your flavor in. I hope you know Mob Craft Beer. They're in downtown Milwaukee, and you have to pick it, and then he'll brew a special flavor just for you. But what he does is he has you put your credit card in, and you actually have to pay for it before he makes it, and you have to get enough people that like that beer that it's big enough to buy a batch. Well, that's really creative. No one's ever done that, and nobody's made that beer before. So it's about innovation, right? A discovery strategy, or what I call radical discipline experiments, and growth. So you're speculating on what's going to happen. What's the future going to be? Oh, I'm looking at this trend, John, and it's going to really, it's going to continue. Well, we're sitting here right now in COVID, right? And are things going to continue? What's going to continue? I can tell you a lot of people aren't going to go back to the office, but what else is going to happen? There is no data on the future. So if you want to be an innovator right now, you're going to have to come up with some speculations and some disciplined experiments, right? The magnitude is high. If it works, you're rich. You're Facebook, you're Amazon, right? Yeah, but at a medium risk, because right now, there's nothing to lose. I mean, if you're a restaurant owner and you can't open your restaurant, you got to get really creative, and maybe curbside pickup isn't the answer. So what else can you do? They tend to be, artisans. They have visions. It's almost spiritual. They believe in their stuff so much. So are you an artist? Was the card that you picked green? Right? And I say care and feeding of artists. Situation artists shine are big changes. Right now, with COVID happening and what's going on in the disability community, is the time for innovators. They take risks. They incite change. They look at the future. They discover opportunities, things that weren't there before. Oh, we're now working at home, but now we have augmented reality and we have, virtual reality. Can we pull those things together to make a virtual office place where I can see and talk to people? Not in my physical sense, but in my virtual sense, right? Experimenting through project pilots. Your children were not born 18 years old. They have to grow up. So these ideas as an innovator, and we always think, oh, we're going to get it right the first time. No, you're not. When I talked about my 150 new products I talked about, as I said, I tried 600. How many actually worked the first day? They all became multi-million-dollar projects. But how many worked the first day? How many worked the first day was only 3 out of 150. The box was too big. The machine didn't work right. The distribution channel didn't really work out the way we thought, right? So where would you normally find artists? Basically, marketing, which is what I do product development, which is I do, and I'm a strategist. I'm not an artist. Don't ask me to draw anything. Independent contractors who say, I can do it. Don't worry about it. I got this, right? And work for themselves, right? That's where you tend to find artists. So as you can tell, I'm an innovator. But it's kind of like design thinking. Your design thinking says you go big at the beginning, lots and lots of ideas, and then you narrow down, and you go big again, and then narrow down again. When I always tell people, give me 100 bad ideas, and I'll make 3 great ones. And I have a lot of big business people tell me, no, just give me 1 great idea. No, because if you're 2% off, you lose. I've seen this happen over and over. I've watched CEOs lose their job. I'm an autonomous person. I know what works. I know exactly what the customer wants. No, you don't. Go talk to the customer. Put it in their hands. See how they like it or don't like it. If you're in the disability community, actually give it to them to work with and the business at the same time. How do we make this work together, right? How does that work? And then there's global development markets. It's about diversity. Yes, let me repeat this. In innovation, diversity matters. It's all about diversity. If we all think alike, all act alike, we'll never do anything, unique and new. What I like to do is get together with different groups like engineers and finance people and people who are in sales and people and customers and bring them in the room. And we all talk, right? So we're always trying to come up with something unique, a new stream of revenue, a design thinking, reinventing, Google Glasses, what you can see now. I love to use Google as an example. Everyone says, oh, Google is so innovative. Well, Google, Larry Page was a student of my brother's at the University of Michigan. So he practices this. So hopefully you can learn from what he learned, right? And he didn't get Google right the first time. You realize why it said Google and no other stuff around it? Is they couldn't do a graphic interface. They had great algorithms. They knew how to do search engines, but they couldn't do graphics. And guess what? That was their secret, and that was their superpower. Why? Because their mission is making information simple. Now, with all the stuff in your life, wouldn't you like to make it simple? So if you're really a creative and an innovator and a green, it's not only about being new, it's being very useful in a simple way to the consumer. And then we have, if you had red as your card, right? Processes and procedures, right? We're talking about the engineer. You're an engineer. A lot of innovators are engineers. They know how to scale. Airline logistics. You ever watch those maps of airlines all over the United States all the time? How do you know where, who's what, and what's going on, right? Like air traffic controller is a very high stress job, right? Heavy manufacturing, they produce at 1,500 a minute, Gerber. So it's going by so fast you can't even see it. So it's very predictable. You don't want anything. You want that plane to land. You want that medical procedure to go well. And you want that high-speed line not to fall apart, right? But they're cautious, right? Because surgical procedures, there's a right way and a wrong way to do things. If it doesn't work, it's awful. People die, bad things happen, machines blow up, right? It's all about efficiency, lean manufacturing, supply chain. Somebody pushes a button over here, and I always say McDonald's. They push a cheeseburger button, and a cow dies in Argentina, and everything happens in between. It's all about efficiency. That's why they can sell a hamburger to you so cheap. It's quality control. By the way, if you ever get a chance, I'm up here in Wisconsin. I've been to Hamburger U. Go see Hamburger U. It's amazing. The kind of efficiencies and qualities they've got built into their systems is mind-blowing, and how people work in them, right? It's about engineers, about safety and savings. There's a right way and a wrong way. We don't want to drive the Harley into the pool. We want to be safe, right? And if there's a right way and a wrong way to do stuff. So we need to understand that when we're dealing with an engineer, right? And then their accomplishments and their advancements. So there's productivity, and there's lean and Six Sigma, done by GE, done by Motorola. As I said, often those folks came up with those processes. There's low magnitude. They're not going to be very innovative, and there's going to be medium, there's low risk, and there's medium momentum. So it's all incremental. If you've ever dealt with an engineer, oh, John, we say 0.001, which will mean we're going to save $1 million a year. It's infinite. It's really tiny. It's about efficiency and quality, right? And they get upset if you don't read the data, right? If you get this big book, I used to be a VP of sales and marketing, and they put on my desk 30 pages. They expect you to read the data, and a lot of people don't, right? So that's the control. That's the engineer. Large scale projects. They apply their technical expertise. They're incremental improvements. None of them are huge, right? Right. And there's a right way and a wrong way. They're always the best dressed, and most, they look very, very well kept whenever you deal with them, right? And they're operating management, they're engineers, and they all work together, right? It's about hi ho, hi ho. Is it? So somebody's coming through here. So anyway, so we also have they do process design. You ever seen the new Amazon store? I love the new Amazon store. You don't have anybody in the store stocking. You don't have anybody at the front register. You just scan your phone and you walk through, and it automatically checks you out and charges your account. It's all about technological platforms, efficiency, and they can tell if you put it in your pocket or not. So again, it's really, really cool to look at, how the engineers look at innovation. Now, here's the magic that people don't know. If you ever dealt with the innovator, the new product person versus versus the engineer, they're not only opposites, but they destroy each other. They're not only opposites, but they destroy each other. Think about this. If I'm paid, I'm in quality. I was in quality at the beginning of my career, and I was paid on defects per million. The more defects we had, the less I got paid. The more efficient it was, less defects we had, the better I got paid. Now, when I tried a new product, I just told you, it never works the first time. So this is basically a constructive conflict. It's always going to happen. If you always want to make sure that machine runs all the same way, it's very efficient, it's very lean, you'll never invent anything. However, if you invent something which it will drive, you have to know it's going to make the engineers and the quality people crazy, because you're going to have defects and you're going to have to ask them to help you get the defects out. So there's a high, thing of risk on one side and a low, so it's called constructive conflict, right? That's what drives you crazy. Oh, John, it's not that they hate you or you hate them. It's they have different objectives. What outcome do they want? I want to come up with some radical experiment. Something has never been done, and I'm going to have to figure my way through this. On the other side, if I'm an engineer, I want it to be efficient, safe, make sure everybody uses it. So this is a conflict between green and blue, the creative and the red quadrant. And matter of fact, if you're in a working situation, I'll bet you have who's that crazy creative in your group that drives you crazy, or you're the creative and the engineer comes in and says, hey, John, but it's got to work in 1,500 a minute. And you're going to say, there's no way this is going to work in 1,500 a minute because you haven't figured it out yet. So understanding, how much so one is I want huge growth. That's what the greens do. And I want, the reds basically want efficiency and incremental growth. So think of it as two companies. Think of Google on one side and think of Toyota on the other side. Google has, as I said, has 5 or 6 companies all over $1 billion. How many make money? Real question, if you had 6 companies over $1 billion, how many make money? And the answer is 2. It used to be 1 up until last year when YouTube started making money. It's only 2. All those other billion-dollar divisions don't make a dime. They're disciplined experiments. They're high risk. All that money could go right in the sea. Understand, but that's what innovators do. Or are you Toyota, right? Where it's 7% every year, no matter what. And it's all about efficiency and quality. It's lean, it's Six Sigma. But you're never going to see a 20% growth out of Toyota, ever, right? So you've got Google, it's high risk, high reward. Toyota, low risk, but always efficient. Matter of fact, if you've ever had a chance to go to a Toyota headquarters, which I have, right? It was in Ann Arbor, Michigan. And a person could be an expert at brakes, and they could be there for 30 years, and they're going to be the world's expert on brakes. And they didn't for up until recently, the last 5 or 6 years, Toyota didn't even hire MBAs because it's all about engineers, all about data. So they were always about data. So if I was saying this was a superhero character, think of yourself. Are you the creative? Are you Storm that can make lightning out of thin air? Or are you the beast who's really the scientist? Even though he's really strong, he's always really scientifically fact-based, making a decision on what's based on the most recent science. So that's the difference, as I said, when you look at these things. So are you Storm or are you Beast? And now we're going to talk about blue. If blue is on your card, you're the athlete, man. You're quick, you make it happen now. You're about speed and profits. You're often you find them on merger and acquisition teams, rapid action teams. They're all about profits and winning and losing, right? There's smartphones, there's financial services, right? There's always an athlete. There's a right way and a wrong way. Athletes are always about speed. They don't care about the rules. They want to win, right? As I said, nature is, red and fang and claw. As I always ask people, when will a blue fire you? Just for not hitting your number. No, business is business, John. They didn't hit their number. They're out of here. You're dealing with an athlete. They're innovators about speed, so they go very, very fast. Now, is their innovation big? They always think it is because they're so fast, but it isn't. It's medium. Big innovation takes time. Small innovation can go really fast. Is it sustainable? No. How fast can you run? Well, you can do a sprint in 100 yards. Can you do a sprint for a mile? The answer is no. So it's not sustainable. You burn out the clutch. So the athletes understand that. They're not living for tomorrow. They're living for today. So when you're looking for growth and you need it right now, you go find an athlete because they're going to make it happen now, right? And they don't really care about your feelings. They don't care about how they do it. They're just going to be out there making it happen. So again, care and feeding of an athlete, all you have to do is challenge them. Say, we want to see who's the best. Often people in sales are blues, right? They're very always pursuing the goals. There's winning is a big part of what they do. They're really, aggressive competitors. They reemploy resources. You're hired, you're fired, we're moving that money over here. You ever have that happen to you? I have. Oh my gosh, I'm working on this new product. Thought I had funding. It's gone, right? So you're dealing with athletes, right? And you have to understand, you find them in sports, you find them in finance and brand management, merger and acquisitions. So how you innovate is what you innovate. Think about a venture capitalist. They don't really want your company to grow. If they want your company to grow, it's like 6x, and they want it tomorrow because they want a return on their investment. And yet you're the entrepreneurial, you're the innovator, and you've come up with this new thing, and you're not going to be able to pay them tomorrow. So you have to understand these are conflicts that you're going to have, and how you innovate is what you innovate, right? So think about it. They are always paid for performance. Progressive. I love progressive. Oh, you get the lowest rate. No, what they did is they did analysis, and you have the least amount of problems that we're going to have a really high return on investment for you. So we're going to price up everyone else and have them go away, and we're just going to take you. So it's plug, drive, results. It's all about speed, right? So that's what compete is. So if you're a compete innovator, you're about speed and profits, and you're about making it happen now, make it quicker, faster, higher. And then there's the collaborators. Is medium because it takes time to create relationships. It's a slow and it's sustainable. It can last for a long time. It's called the sages, right? You believe in fair coffee, bicycle lanes, gaming, the community. We share knowledge. Universities are very yellow. It's about community and knowledge, right? Have you ever been in a yellow meeting? It's really slow. They're going to have golf afterwards. They may even have clog dancing. There's all sorts of things. However, if you ever want to know how to get something done, you ask a yellow, because they don't know how to do it themselves. They know somebody who knows somebody who can get you those Packer tickets. They know somebody who knows somebody who can get you that really great deal on a car. Yellows have a community. They're all connected. They know what's going on long before the blues ever even think about it, right? Because they're connected. They're family outings. They're about apprenticeships. I'm going to develop you. A blue wouldn't develop anyway. They hire them or fire them. So you have to understand how you innovate. Are you going to innovate through collaboration? To me, this is one of the biggest, strongest ways to innovate, is find a sugar daddy or sugar mama. I know that's impolite, that you can work with and collaborate with and create something new. So that's about innovation, right? They're long-term. Chinese are yellows. They're sages. They play long ball. In America, we play short ball, which is blues. They're about speed and profits, and they're now, right? You develop people. You manage relationships, right? You build communities. You pursue commitments. What color do you think most CEOs are? What color do you think innovative? Because remember, if you're a CEO, you're only paid if your stock price goes up. So you have to be pretty innovative. You're gonna get more money. You got to grow the company, right? So what color do you think most CEOs are? And most people say, John, they're all blues. They're all about making it happen, hire, fire. That's what they're, no. Majority of CEOs are yellows. Now, I call them yellow blues. They're very blue. It's their second trait, but they always have to get things done through people. They have to motivate and get people to go above and beyond their skill level. So if you're looking at innovation, and you're, to me, one of the best ways to do it, and you don't have a lot of money, is to be a collaborator. Think about a Mayo Clinic. Now we're talking about, this is what I would call red. Most medical clinics are, there's a right way, the wrong way to do it. You don't want that surgery to go bad if you're taking it, right? And so what they did is they were having a bad experience at the Mayo Clinic, getting lots of complaints. Food is awful, the beds are horrible. So what did they do? They wanted to improve customer intimacy. So how did they do it? They made the doctors stay a week at the hospital and sleep in the hospital beds and eat the hospital food. And all of a sudden, customer experience went up sixfold because they changed the bed and they changed the food because the doctor said, oh my gosh, this is awful. We can do better than this. So they're very cooperative, they're very clan oriented. So how fast do you want to go? I'm an innovator. I've got this great idea. I'm going to go get venture capitalists. They're going to give me money. I'm going to make it happen right now. I'm going to buy it, and I'm going to return to them 4 times. Let me repeat that. 4 times more money than I would if I went to the bank. The bank's going to, charge me X amount % interest. I'm a venture capitalist because I know the risk is high. I'm going to want 4 times my return than if I would have got it from the bank. So they're about speed. However, yellows, it takes a long time to build a community. How long does it take you to build a relationship? Think about this. If you're in sales or in marketing like I am, it takes a long time. And you destroy it in a minute. If somebody says, go get the number, you got to make the number happen right now. So it's about, is it sustainable? Is it yellow? Are we going to try to create a community? Are we trying to get results now? Now, the magic of this, you're not one color or the other. This is called the competing value model. And so what I've told you is what basically you understand the 4 colors of innovation. Are you basically the artist? Are you, are the opposite of that, which is the engineer? Are you the sage, Xavier? Or are you Wolverine who kills everybody in the room, right? You need to understand what outcomes does your organization want. Now think about it like Russian nesting dolls. You have a personal style, your team has a personal style, and your organization has a personal style. And it really isn't about you. It's about your organization and what do they want? What outcomes do they want? So if we're going to try to do this and we really want to be innovators, I'm going to teach you how to be innovators. You have to say, I'm a yellow, so I'm going to do it through my community. I'm going to search and reapply best practices. I'm going to give you some tricks of the trade here in a minute. You're going to look for escape routes if you're an artist. You're going to look for unorthodox solutions. We're going to come up with some of those here in a minute. Oh, you're an athlete. You're going to look for short-term wins, quick wins, and you're going to overcome some barriers. And finally, you're the engineer, right? So you're going to look at big data and you're going to have a sequential plan. If you've ever been in a red meeting, it's always, they follow, there's always an agenda. And you always start at the top and you go step by step by step. You're in a group of engineers. So how you innovate is what you innovate. Now you've learned the competing value model. So, but how do we really do this? It's like making stone soup. Have you ever heard the children's story about stone soup? There was 2 Napoleonic soldiers during the war between France and England. They're coming back from war and they're starving. And they all they have is a pot and a stone. They come to the square in the middle of the marketplace. They fill the pot full of water and put a stone in it and start to boil it. And the townspeople come by and say, what are you doing? And we say, well, you're making stone soup. And they say, that sounds awful. That's awful stone soup. And the villager says, but I like my soup with carrots. Oh, carrot stone soup is much better than stone soup. So we put carrots in the pot. The next person comes by and says, what are you making? And you say, stone soup with carrots. Oh, I like my soup with potatoes. Oh, potatoes, stone soup with carrots and potatoes is much better, right, than just stone soup. And the next person comes and they add the onions and and all these. And finally, the person with the chicken comes by and puts the chicken in the pot. Well, the moral of the story as an innovator, you always think you have to go alone. You don't. You're making stone soup. So everybody puts a little into the pot, but here's the magic. Not only did the soldiers feast, right, because they have this pot full of this delicious stew, but not only did they feast, but the whole village feasted. So it's not about just you. It's about working together to make stone soup. You may be the engineer who came up with a great technology. You may be the blue who has the money and can invest. You may be, the yellow that has this great community. And you may be the artist that really came up with that unique idea and has a vision for the future. But you can't make stone soup by yourself. So you have to learn to make stone soup. I'm not an expert at everything, but to me, I'm a big guy on LinkedIn. I love LinkedIn because I have 4,000 people. I don't know the answer to a lot of stuff, but I know somebody who does. So the answer is you set a high quality target, something that you couldn't have thought of in the shower. You're an innovator. Number two, you have to enlist deep domain experts. You're working on nanotechnology and you're not a nanotechnology person. You got to find a nanotechnology person. Or you're working on a medical discovery and you're not a doctor. You need to find one. You create this team. Now here's the other magic. You take multiple shots on goal. Don't tell me I'm putting all my eggs in one basket. It doesn't work that way because you don't know what the future is going to build. So you have to try to set a wide array. I call them disciplined experiments. It's the scientific process. But it's in business. You try it over here, you try this. Is it going to be, is it going to be this technology or that technology? I don't know, but start with small experiments. Don't spend a ton of money. Always starve them. Don't give a lot of money, but see what you can come up with and spread the array. And the most important, what worked, what didn't work? What did the customer want? What did the consumer say? Understanding, learn from your experiments and your experiences. This is where major corporations lose to innovators because they try something, it doesn't work, and they fire the people. Innovators try again. It's iterative. They call it pivoting. So you're going to pivot. It didn't work. They even have a name for it. You imagine pivoting, right? Oh, you spent your money. It didn't work. Too bad. Pivot. So you try something different because you don't know what's going to work and what's not going to work. So here are some tips about innovation, and you want becoming the next innovator. First, we already talked about the 20-80 rule. Look for a crisis. Look for things that aren't working. I always say when things aren't working, everybody's going to listen to you because they got nothing to lose. Number two, the cavalry isn't coming. Nobody's going to come who's a genius about something or give you money or manna's going to fall from the sky. It's the cavalry isn't coming, so what are you going to do about it? I can always tell if I'm walking in an organization that's really innovative, because if it is, it's like the stock market. There's all sorts of things going on. People are talking to people. There's lots of music, lots of energy. You go in, there's this quiet elevator music, and everybody's really quiet. They're not inventing anything. So to me, I've done this. I'm an old guy for almost 30 years, and I've done, as I said, over 150 new products. Cavalry isn't coming, so what are you going to do about it? So if you look around, what in this room could we do together? On Will, what could we do together? What expertise could you bring to the stone soup? And that we can work together to create something really radically different. Ride your move and move your feet. Ride what moves and move your feet. Ride what moves and move your feet. When you think about it, when those COVID happens, those who move their feet the fastest are going to be, on the cutting edge. Let me use a good example. I'm on a board of directors of a sewing cabinet company. Not really sexy kind of company, but when everybody needed a mask, everybody had to pull out their sewing machines, and they were very, very quick to adjust their inventory, make it really simple, get it out there, and they went up they went up over to 100% in volume because they moved their feet. That technology, that opportunity. I've had students that have become millionaires. I'm not exaggerating. One young man graduated from Whitewater, got on the plane the next day, went to LA, met up with his friend, joined a group, and they became Bird, right? He was the first 18 employees at Bird. They're now worth $2.2 billion. Wouldn't you like to have been my student? Isn't that great? He was gutsy. I wouldn't got on a plane the day after graduation without a job and gone to LA, but he did. Ride what moves. He knew what was moving, what technology, what trends, what was going to happen, and he moved his feet. So always ride what moves and move your feet. This is my favorite one. And I almost feel guilty about this one because it doesn't sound really good, and it's really how I've done all my innovations. Scour the world, steal the best, but make it your own. I didn't say plagiarize. I didn't say come up with something that's, as I said, that you totally copycat and violate an IP. Didn't say that. It said scour the world, steal the best, and make it your own. Henry Ford gets total credit coming up with the assembly line. If you read about Ford, I come from Michigan, you always are taught about Ford in Michigan, and it talks about how Ford hated living on the farm. Well, Ford, as a young man, went to Chicago, and he watched how they deassembled cows. Basically, they had the slaughter plant. It's kind of gross. There's books written about how gross it was. And one person cut off this part, another person made a cut here, another person, and they quickly became very efficient and moving it through. And basically by deassembling a cow. So what he did is he assembled a car. He just took something that he observed going one direction and turned it around and went the other direction. And to this day, he gets credit for the assembly line. When I went out, and I told you before about Gerber graduates, and I said, at 10 months old, baby's number one thing they're eating is McDonald's French fries. How awful. So what I do is I scoured the world. McDonald's is really good at this. I've worked with McDonald's. These guys are good people, right? They're not bad people. People think they're bad. They're not, right? All I did was make a healthy Happy Meal called Gerber Graduates, sold 2 billion. I wish I could say, I invented, no, those Cheerios, I just made them healthier. Those spaghetti, just made it healthier. The mac and cheese just made it healthier. I didn't do fries because that's horrible. But again, just coming up with a healthy Happy Meal. Now let's use another one. Anybody remember Amazon? What did Amazon sell? Now they sell everything today. But what did Amazon sell back then? Right? So what did Amazon sell? Amazon sold books. They're a warehouse company that didn't have a warehouse. They had their books shipped. So Amazon, once you figured out how to ship, all there was a large SAP platform that was very, very efficient, right? That worked really easy for the consumer to use. And they sent the order to the publisher, and the publisher shipped the books. Once you figure out how to do books, you can do anything. Uber, what's Uber? Uber is a taxi company without taxis. The same Amazon model, an SAP system that's easy to use, that uses somebody else instead of a warehouse. This time it's a car. So it's a cab company without cabs. And they had a layer. They had to qualify the driver. Same system. Now, what's Airbnb? Again, a hotel company without hotels. Underutilized asset, both for cars and underutilized warehouses and underutilized, houses. So what they do, SAP system, easy to use instead of qualifying drivers or qualifying houses. Wouldn't you like to be on the bottom floor of any of these companies? It's the same thing. Scour the world, steal the best, make your own. It's the same business model. What can you do in your business? Fail early, fail often, and fail off Broadway. Don't try your experiment with your biggest customer, ever, because it's not going to work. Look for that little innovative customer or vendor that you're working with and fail early, fail often, and fail off Broadway. Don't go to the biggest, and you want to fail early because if it doesn't work, you haven't spent a lot of money. If you wait to the end before you try the experiment, right, and it fails, you've lost hundreds of millions of dollars or millions of dollars. It's a really horrible thing. I've seen it happen. I've had CEOs lose their money or lose their jobs because of it. So fail early, fail often, fail on Broadway. Show, don't tell. Show, don't tell. Our eyes are meant to be visual. People were not wearing their seatbelts till they saw the seatbelt dummies. And they saw how they smashed into the windshield. And at the beginning, they had like blood spots on them and everything. It was awful. Show, don't tell. Show people how it's going to work because nobody's going to believe you if you don't. So if you're an innovator, you better have some prototype or something to put in their hands so they can actually see it. Or it can be virtual. It can be, basically a CAD scan, something that they can see. Show them, don't tell. Show, don't tell. Remember, Disney, what's the first thing Disney built? Was the castle. What did he say? Why did he build the castle first? Matter of fact, if you go to Disney World, you'll see it's way up here, because it was in a 20-mile swamp. So he had to, basically, before they drained the swamp, they had to build the castle. And they said, why'd you build it first? So, well, how do you know where to put the road in if you know where the castle is? How do you know where to put the good hotels if you don't know where the castle is? How high can you put Dumbo's ride if you don't know where the castle is? So it's about show, don't tell. Who is the modern person? Who was this? Was Apple. They showed that basically, if y'all ever watched Steve Jobs' presentation, there's not even a word on the slide. He's showing you the product. He's showing, I want to meet Susie. She's in Sausalito. They tap and there's Sausalito. And we're going to meet her at a sushi restaurant. They tap it and they go to a sushi restaurant. And here's Susie smiling with a camera picture. Boom. It's all about show, don't tell. But always leave room for stuff you don't know. The difference between leading and leading innovation is always leave room for stuff you don't know. I could talk, how Viagra was invented. I could talk about about 1,000 different experiments that started out in A and ended up someplace else. Viagra, by the way, started as a heart remedy for hearts, but it had a little side effect. So they left room for they didn't know. And, Park Davis invented it, and then it was bought by another company. And finally, Pfizer acquired it, the biggest drug discovery ever. But it was meant for hearts, not for what it's used for. Understand, leave room for stuff you don't know. These are really good tips on being an innovator. But that said, join an innovation community. Hang out with other entrepreneurs. Join my LinkedIn. I open it up to everyone. I only have 2 rules. Only positive, no negativity. And number 2, turn off your update button, because every time you update, it sends a note to everyone. So why don't you join us and join our Will community? Please join. We're trying to, we're working for inclusion, leadership, and learning for the people in the disabilities. I bet you have an innovation that could really help us. I want you to be the innovator. I hope these tips, understand how you innovate is what you innovate. What kind of innovator are you? And then use some of those rules I talked about and see if you can start innovating tomorrow. Again, this is as Adjunct Marketing Professor John DeGraff. Do we have any questions out there? I don't know if anybody's in the room with me. I doubt it, because the way this is done, so I apologize. If you have questions, make sure you write me. It's degraffj@uww.edu. I'll be happy to answer your questions or do anything that I can do to help you out. So again, as I said, I've tried. Remember, innovation's not for the faint of heart. It was much easier to launch a $2 billion new product called Gerber Graduates than start my own business called the Innovatrium, because that's my money, right? When you start writing checks, it's really hard. And this is heavy lifting. So what I always say is find somebody who's done it before and hang out with them. And I'm not kidding. I don't care what you work on. If you hang out with them, don't ask them what they do, because we all tell fibs or tell stories. I won't say lie, but we tell stories. In reality, go hang out with me, right? Say, what time do you get up? I get up at 5 a.m. Really? That early? Yeah, because I talk to Europe at 6 a.m. And then I go to school and I teach. And then I work late and I work at these 3 student orgs and I do all these other things. And that's where some of my ideas come from. So understand how innovators really work. Show, don't tell. Practice some of these things and go for it. I hope you have a wonderful day. Again, John DeGraff, contact me anytime.